I'm Ben Tolhurst. I've spent 25 years in the outsourcing industry, working for big corporates across a range of sectors. And following a climate epiphany, I quit my job and now work in a variety of roles, including as a director for real sustainability. Everything I'm focused on now is about helping businesses take action to tackle the climate, ecological and social crisis. And in this short piece, I'm going to provide some context to the crisis and what to do about it. There are three things I'd like to say about this graph. Firstly, CO2 surpassed safe levels way back in the mid-1980s. And by safe, I mean the human race has never existed in a world of CO2 this high. Why does that matter? Because CO2 is an indicator of warming, and warming is really bad for the planet. The second thing I'd like to say is that levels are continuing to rise despite the global conferences, agreements and pledges of all the countries around the world. And the third thing to say is that CO2 levels set to continue to rise further. Since the Paris Agreement, where countries agreed to limit fossil fuels, 60 of the world's biggest banks have ploughed nearly $4 trillion into projects which actually finance the burning of fossil fuels. And we can see the impact this is having on the climate. According to a UN report, the number of extreme weather events over the last 20 years has doubled compared with the previous 20 years. So in the last 20 years, we've seen around 7,000 extreme weather events affecting over 4 billion people, some of them more than once, costing trillions of dollars. The very land we live on is becoming uninhabitable at an alarming rate. There is a term, the human climate niche, which refers to the areas on Earth where humans have historically flourished due to favourable climatic conditions. The optimum mean annual temperature where we flourish is around 13 degrees C. Yet by 2070, according to current predictions, the mean annual temperature will rise to 20 degrees, which has all kinds of implications, not least on food and water security. And perhaps most chillingly, the mean annual temperature of 1/5 of the world's land, where 3.5 billion people live, will rise to 29 degrees, meaning that 1/3 of the world's population will be forced to deal with temperatures which are actually unsustainable for human life, which of course will lead to mass migration, civil breakdown, and all that comes with that. In terms of biodiversity, humans often see themselves as outside of nature, yet we are an intrinsic part of it. We rely on healthy biodiversity for our food, our medicine, our clothing. And yet, over my lifetime, the populations of mammals, reptiles, fish and amphibians has fallen by 70%. In fact, today, of all the mammals on Earth, 96% are livestock and humans, leaving space for only 4% of wild animals. And every degree that we heat the planet, the yield of staple cereal crops will decline by 10%. 14 of the world's biggest cities are currently experiencing water scarcity or drought, meaning that food and water security are in grave danger. There is simply one point to make here. The impact of the climate, ecological and social breakdown is incredibly unevenly distributed and hugely unfair. The global south, where 88% of the world's population live, are responsible for just 8% of the climate crisis, and yet they bear 82% of the cost and of course the untold personal devastation caused by it. And perhaps most scarily, based on all of the data, the science is clear. We are heading for extinction as a human race within our children's lifetime, unless we do something radical now. The UK government has in fact been told to prepare for the adaptation of a 2 to 4 degree warmed world by their own committee on climate change. The problem is that a 4-degree world just isn't tenable. But there is some good news. We actually have the resources, the know-how, the ingenuity and the money to address this. The big question is, do we want it enough? Are we prepared to take sufficient action to try to mitigate this situation? What we need is a significant and fundamental shift of consciousness. We need to act like the truth is real. In terms of solutions, at a global level, we have Project Drawdown, a not-for-profit, non-partisan organisation that seeks to address the greenhouse gas issue by highlighting 100 solutions. I'll just pick up on the top 3 here. Food waste, a third of the world's food is never eaten, squandering a whole host of resources and greenhouse gases. Education and health for women, particularly in developing countries, to create greater upward mobility, planetary stewardship, amongst other things, and a plant-rich diet. If cattle were their own nation, they would be the world's 3rd largest emitter of greenhouse gases. I'd also just touch on 5 important things which a business can do, which covers raising awareness, educating staff and clients, and legitimizing the conversation so people can speak out about the crisis. Rapid decarbonisation, setting clear targets and executing plans on delivering them, including scope 3, not just 1 and 2. Scrutinising our supply chains so we truly understand their impacts, both good and bad, and shifting away from ecologically destructive industries through a just transition of jobs, and embracing and driving the circular economy to end planned obsolescence. In fact, all business decisions need to be made through the lens of the climate, ecological, and social impact. So I'll leave you with just one quote. We don't have a right to ask whether we are going to succeed or not. The only question we have the right to ask is, what's the right thing to do? What does the earth require of us if we want to continue to live on it? Thank you.